Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to another TMDSAS Office Hours session. My name is Suleima and I am the TMDSAS Support Coordinator with TMDSAS. So if you are new here, I just want to say welcome to our series. We host this every week. We typically host this on Wednesdays at 1, but today was a special time frame in which we had to shift it a little bit later. But you're always welcome to join us each week. Our office hours are hosted for you guys to ask questions. If you have about filling out your application, if you've already filled out your application, what next steps to take. So this is just another platform that we offer for applicants to be able to ask their questions and get their answers live. So without further ado, I did want to go ahead and inform y'all of, let me just move this a little bit to the left. One second. Okay, and I'll share the processing times that we have for our application. So typically, as we're getting into the rest of the cycle throughout the summer into July, we do have on our website, we do have on the homepage information about where our team is currently processing letters of evaluation and applications. So you can find that at www.tmdsas.com, and I'll link the link in the chat. But basically, yeah, on the homepage, you'll be able to see right now, for example, our team is currently processing letters submitted via direct upload that were submitted on July 1st and interfolio letters that were submitted on June 30th. So if you submitted your letters through any of those methods very recently, that gives you an idea of where our team is currently at to give you an idea of how much longer to anticipate on hearing back on your letters. If it's already been past that date and you haven't heard anything with the status, it's still suspending or not received, I would recommend that you check your internal messaging feature in your application portal. Typically, if that is the case, then most cases the team has already sent you a message to inform you that your letter was rejected. um, it's nothing too alarming. I can guarantee you that. It's just sometimes um, it might be the fact that your evaluator might have left something out. As you all know, our member institutions need us to have 5 letter requirements that they need us to review letters to make sure they have all those components. If any of those are missing, then we at that point will reject the letter and give you a notification as to why it was rejected. All you have to do is just have your evaluator correct that, add that on the physical letter itself, because that is what's going to the admissions committees. And then at that point, it will be complying with the requirements that the schools require. Additionally, we do have the processing time for application. So if you submitted your application as of June 11th, that is the submission date that our team is currently processing those applications submitted on that date. So if you submitted that in July, just be patient. Our team is still going through those, and they review applications based on the submission days. So just depending on how many applications we get per day. So some days we might have gone hundreds, some not so many. So it just kind of fluctuates on the time frame that it takes for them to proceed to the next submission date. Alrighty. And one more thing, just because we are in July, we are now heading into further into the application cycle into the next phase. If you're not already aware, around August 1st is when some of our member institutions start handing out interview invites. So I'll put the deadlines and dates page here. And that'll give you a breakdown based on the school type, what the application cycle and important dates look like. Like I mentioned, a lot of our schools start handing out interview invites. I'm thinking specifically for our medical schools as of August 1st. So we do have a session coming up next Tuesday at 10 a.m. with one of our deans from the Texas Vet School. And so we do have her coming in and giving us some information about interview strategies, techniques, tips to help you prepare for those interviews as you begin to receive those on your end. So I highly recommend that you join us for that because it'll also be live and you'll be getting information directly from the dean. So let me go ahead and get to these questions that we have in the chat. If you haven't already, enter your question down in the chat and we'll get through it. So our first one is from Medical Marvels. I like that username. Good afternoon, and thank you for holding office hours today. So what is the expected response time for inquiries submitting through the internal messaging portal? I reached out a few weeks ago and I haven't received a response. I followed up with an email. It was instructed to go into the portal. Let's see. Okay, so this looks like a letter inquiry. So your evaluator uploaded the letter of recommendation to the TMDSAS portal twice, but it does not appear on my account. My recommender is okay. Um, at a hospital. Okay. So yeah. So first part of your question I can respond to. So our team is will respond within 2 business days. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer, just depending on the holidays. We did have holidays back to back in June, at the end of mid-June and at the beginning of July. So we did have those holidays in between, so that might have affected a little bit on our turnaround response times. But I do know that as of yesterday, our team is responding to messages sent that very same day. So our team is currently right now, if you sent a message either yesterday afternoon or today, our team is answering those messages or have already replied to those. So just double check your messages. They might have already responded back to you. But with regards to your letter, if you haven't already, since you are already in the messaging feature, double check that you didn't already receive a message from our team letting you know in case the letter was rejected. It sounds like that might have been the case since you mentioned that your evaluator re-uploaded it twice, and it still doesn't appear on your account. To me, that sounds like that could be a situation in which the letter was rejected. So just double check your internal messaging feature. Again, you will be notified when a letter is rejected and why, what was missing from the letter. And if you have any further questions, you can follow up to that message. And the reason for the email inquiry, so right now during the peak of the application cycle, we ask applicants to send us inquiries via internal messaging only, just so that way it allows for email to be open for evaluators to email us, advisors, our member institutions, as well as future applicants who have questions about applying, so not yet started an application. And that just helps us be a little bit more effective in our response times. We want to make sure that we get to your questions. So the internal messaging feature helps us answer your questions directly since you guys are already current applicants, filling out applications, submitting them, etc. And so that's why when we get email notifications or emails from current applicants, we verify that if they're a current applicant and we like gently move y'all over to the internal messaging feature. Okay, so let's go on to Jacob's question. My school offers a general chemistry lab as a general chemistry lab lecture. Should I label this on the application as just a lab or as a lab lecture? Well, it actually sounds like this would be the instance in which you would use the chemistry LL course area designation. So that is typically for those courses on your transcript that either show as 4 or 5 credit hours or credit hours. And it just shows on your transcript that your course is both a lecture and lab. And so that course area distinction, chemistry LL, will correspond with that. Hi, thank you for holding these office hours. Yeah, of course, no problem. And I'm glad that you guys have joined us, and we already had questions lined up ready for us before we went and jumped in on here. So I appreciate y'all for tuning in and being engaging with us today. Okay, I had a question about course name changes done by my university. In the middle of my 4 years, the school decided to change the course names for some classes. Should I type in? Should I type the new name into my application or the name on my transcript, the old course name? Great question. So in this case, I would recommend that you follow what's on your official transcript. If you have a copy but it's older, and you don't have a recent copy that might reflect that new name change, I would highly recommend that you obtain an official transcript from that school for your own copy. That way, whenever you're entering your courses, you're entering them exactly as they appear in your official transcript. Um, because although we don't need them at this time, um, if they are needed from you, if you are accepted later on down the cycle, and we do require that you send in those transcripts so we can verify that you entered everything exactly as it appears on that transcript and there's no discrepancies with that, we would be going by what's on the official transcript. And so if the official transcript that your copy, for instance, if you've had it for a couple years and reflects the older school names, um, but you have an idea that that might actually be different now on a new version of that transcript. I would recommend just if you're able to go ahead and get that one just to verify that that has what course name does it have? Is it the old one or is it the new one for you? That way it's just easier for you, but easier for us whenever we get to your application to verify that later on in the cycle if you're accepted. And that process can be quickly and smoothly. Okay, question from Charlotte. I already submitted my application. However, I intend to add a non-core course in the fall this year that I did not list in my application. Would this negatively impact my application? And what can I possibly do to get information across? Great question. So you can always make changes to your coursework throughout the application cycle, even after you submit. In fact, we highly encourage that you do, just because that is the best way to inform the schools of changes to your coursework. Once the schools have your application, at that point, any changes that are made on your application, such as adding new courses, updating that information, is readily available on their end to download and receive that information. The schools have different ways of receiving that. So they will download that information daily, um, weekly. It just depends on the school's end, but just have a peace of mind that once you make an update or change on your application after it's been sent to the schools, at that point, any of those changes are readily available for them to download on their end. And if you have any questions as to how to make those changes to your coursework post submission, we can have that here listed into the chat. Okay. Basically, what you'll have to do at that point, since once the application is sent over to the schools, our team has locked your course terms. And so all we would need you to do is just to send us a message and let us know what term needs to be unlocked so that you can make changes. Once the team member has unlocked it for you and you reply back to that message letting us know that you're done, our team members will lock that up for you again. Alrighty. So hello, thank you for holding office hours. I was wondering if we are allowed to submit more than 3 letters of evaluation for veterinary medicine. Great question, Corin. Unfortunately, that is not the case. The veterinary schools have specifically outlined that they only want 3 veterinary evaluation forms, no more, no less. So if you have already your 3 received forms, unfortunately, we won't be able to add more evaluation forms to this to the 3 that you're allowed to have. And thank you for specifying that you're a vet applicant because that is a different um, situation than the rest of our applicants who can have up to 4 letters or 4 evaluation forms. Question from Joan. Hello, if we have a course that includes a lab and lecture, but the lecture was held online and the lab in person, how should we label this course? It sounds like you can still use the course area LL. So, for example, biochemistry or chem LL, like we talked about in the previous example. And with the course type regarding regular course, RC, or DL for distance learning, I would just say just do the best you can with that. It's not a big deal breaker which one you use. The rule of thumb is whichever course you did most in, you can go ahead and use that course type if you're more comfortable with that. So if you had more lecture in lecture sessions and you did lab throughout the week. Maybe if you feel comfortable of just going ahead and just listing it as RC, that is up to you. But it's again, this is going to be up to you. Either one works. It won't be a discrepancy or anything like that. Okay. Question from Nafia. What happens if a dentist never completes their LOE after you submit your application? Great question. We actually get these questions towards the end of the cycle, but I see how you're already thinking ahead. That's good. So because the dental letter from a dentist is a requirement for one of your letters for dental school application, if you see that your dentist hasn't responded yet to submitting your letter, you have two options. If mm, no, actually, you only have one option because it is a requirement for it to be a dental letter. So in this case, I would recommend that you maybe perhaps reach out to them and see if they're still interested or able to be able to submit your letter. Let them know that the last day that you can have letters submitted for this application cycle is November 15th. They still have time, but of course, you don't want to wait to the last minute. You want to make sure your application is complete on the school's end. Make sure that they can see all of your letters. If this is your again, this yeah, you only have one option in this case. So yeah, checking with that dentist. If they're still unresponsive after that, perhaps seeing if you can get in contact with another dentist that can submit that letter for you. And once you do have that new dentist that can submit that, you can go into your placeholder for the current dentist right now that's being unresponsive, and editing that information in the placeholder to change it to a new dentist that can submit the letter. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Unfortunately, since it is required for a dentist letter, the option is you'll probably just need to find another one. In that case, if the first dentist is still unresponsive. Okay. So follow up from Medical Marvels. Once I submit my application, am I unable to change from individual letters of evaluation to the HP packet? When I was preparing to submit my application, I intended to include both my individual letters and the HP committee packet, similar to it's done on MCAS. However, after submitting, I found that I couldn't add additional letters. Yes, I can definitely explain. So with TMDSAS, we are different. We are a different application service than MCAS. The way it works here, with letters of evaluation, you now have three options. The first option is submitting a minimum of three, with the option of submitting up to four individual letters of evaluation. Or you can submit an HP packet from your advising office at your institution with the option of submitting an additional letter that is separate from the packet submitted on, like the evaluator submitting it on their own. It's not part of the HP packet, it's someone else that's submitting that too. You can have that option. The third option for the cycle is now the evaluation form. So this is a little bit new, typically for evaluators who are not really familiar with writing letters of evaluation for professional school. And so this could be for someone who's maybe like an employer or a volunteer coordinator, um, or like someone from your spiritual religious community has no idea how to write a letter of recommendation. That form is useful for them to be able to fill in the information that the schools are looking for when it comes to core competencies of an applicant. And so those are the only three options of submission. You can't interchange them or combine the two. So if you are wanting the individual letter option, you can only submit three to four. But if you want the HP packet, you can only submit that with the option of that extra letter, but no more than that. So in this case, if you still want to do the individual letters, go ahead and keep that. Just be mindful that you can't add an HP packet with that. But if you'd like to switch now that you submitted your application, you would need to contact us via message to let us know that you want that changed. And then we can move forward with making that change in your application. Alrighty. So when listing employment, do we enter each time period was we held the position, like if the jobs were seasonal or for certain semesters? That's a great question. With activities, we do want to highlight that it's not really like a right or wrong way to do it to enter those activities. We do recommend that you take a look at the information that we have in the guide. It has been updated to be, I would say, a little bit more helpful in regards to helping you figure out like your overall narrative and what you believe would be best represented in your application for your activity. So if you believe that this would be better to post it or list it one time be over a long period of time, if that makes sense for the employment in this case, or if you've had it like for 3 months here and then 3, 4 years later down the road, again, if that makes sense to separate it out, you can also do that. Um, but we do have some information in our guide that gives you information on this particular situation of whether listing at once or over long periods of time. So let me go ahead and link that into the chat so you can take a look at it. It does include a video with examples that our director had mentioned, and he does a better job of explaining that than I do. So let me go ahead and link that into the chat for you. Let's see. For planned activities, if the activities is both employment and healthcare, then which should I list it in? For my research activities, should I list it all if all of the work is done in one timeline but has two different projects were completed? Let me go back to the first one because I do know how to answer this one. So for planned activities, if it is both, remember that with activities, you can only list the activity once. There are exceptions to that. One of those being that if it is a healthcare and employment, you can list it under both categories. So if you are continuing this in the future and you want to include, yeah, so if you're continuing your employment that also counts as healthcare in the future post the application deadline on November 1st, then yes, you would create two entries for planned activities that encompass the healthcare aspect and then the employment aspect. So let me link the application guide into the chat for you as well to take a look at and reference as you're filling that out. Regarding your research activity, I'm not too familiar with the nuances with research activity beyond what's in the guide at the moment. So, just to make sure that we're understanding this question accurately, if you don't mind sending that into the message so our team can get to you and be able to respond to this particular aspect of your question, because I'm not sure if I'm understanding what do you mean with the work being done in one timeline or has two different projects. I'm not really familiar with research activities either, so sorry. I don't want to give you the wrong advice or wrong information. So yes, if you could just follow up with a message, and that way our team can reach out to you and be able to further clarify that question for you. All right. So I need more clarity on the animal experience section. The application guide says not to list same experiences as employment section, but it also includes uh, includes all relevant experiences, whether voluntary, paid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let me see if you have a follow up to that. Okay. Or other similar activities, and only if not under the supervision. Okay, I see how this can be confusing. With let's take a look at that because animal experience and whatnot is it's at the far end of my brain at the moment. So let's take a look at that. This is let's see. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question correctly. Um, and I appreciate you entering all this information, but I think also just the way my brain works, it's kind of scattered here with uh, the different messages. So I just want to make sure that I get this right. Uh, okay, and I do see other follow-ups down here. Um, let's see. Do I list a job with a different description or not? So I know with the vet schools, I know that they are a little bit more strict about senior activity under one category. So I believe that is what you're probably looking at, where it says maybe don't duplicate your activities, or if you have it in one category, don't place it in the other. Um, Regarding your descriptions, for sure you want to make sure that those are tailored to the category in which you are placing them. So just based on the guidance given for supervised experience, the animal experience, that can be used to help you tailor that description. Um, I believe this sounds like this what you're asking about is regarding an activity that could be under both. And I just in a regular situation, I would say, if it falls under both, just make sure you make distinct descriptions under each category so you're not copying and pasting. Ultimately, that's not what the schools want to see. They don't want to see you copying and pasting descriptions and adding activities, copying and pasting those activities everywhere. They they see that as redundant and mm, not very helpful. And can give them a sign of like maybe the applicant just was trying to include as many activities as possible without being thinking critically of where to place the category. Again, thinking critically and deciding where to place the activity is up to you. It's, if you say it goes into this category, that's where it goes. And if your description matches that rationale that you have based on the guidance that we offer in the guide, then absolutely that activity will go into that category. It backs you up. Perfect. Um, so just to make sure, that is typically the advice that we kind of see from our deans. But because veterinary school is a little bit more strict on how many entries of activities you have, um, I would also recommend if you can send us a message just to make sure. My team members can also help me or back me up in information, or if I'm wrong, maybe they can help you navigate that a little bit more. um, but yeah, I would just recommend a message, and that way, also the information is in one message and can help us out. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't allow us to have a long character count for these chats. Unfortunately, I would love that because then it would help have everything organized together. So I do apologize for that, not being able to adjust that immediately right now. Um, but I just want to make sure that I am not giving you the wrong information based on the differentiation of vet applicants versus all the other applicants. So just wanting to cover those bases and making sure that you do you do receive accurate information. I would recommend sending a message. And like I said, our team is really good about trying to maintain that 2 business day window turnaround response time. And I do know that our team is currently responding to messages that were submitted yesterday afternoon and today. So there won't be a huge delay. I can promise you that. All right. So moving on to questions about letters. Um, my LOE has been uploaded and received on the LOE page of the application, but does not say received on my status page. Do I need to follow up, or will this be added soon? Okay. So this sounds like it was a direct upload, and if not, let me know. But typically with direct uploads, because it is uploaded directly into our portal in our server, in our website, whatever you call it. It'll whenever a letter is uploaded into that placeholder of yours, it our system will mark it as received. Um, yeah, it'll just say, okay, we have a letter now. It still needs to process. So I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the session, but our team does process letters submitted by day, and depending on your delivery method, gives you an indication of when to expect for it to be fully processed, and then that status being received and approved. So right now, I think it sounds like your situation is a direct upload in which it is marked as received but pending. So yes, we have the letter, but it still needs to process. So take a look at the website, www.tmdsas.com, to get an idea of where our team is currently um, processing the letters that were submitted by a specific date. And so if it's on or near your submission day, that gives you an idea of when you can expect to see that status change from received to received or pending to received and approved. So it sounds like that might be your case. But if it's not direct upload, again, just double check your messages, because sometimes we have applicants that say, "Hey, I submitted this a long time ago and I still haven't seen any status update." It could be because the letter was rejected and removed from the placeholder, so the corrected letter can be uploaded. So double check your messages. The messages, if there was a letter that was rejected, you would have a message that indicates why, and then and prompt you to contact your evaluator to get that corrected and uploaded as soon as possible. All right, so under planned research activities from November to July, since this is the same activity, just separated by time period sections, can I use the same description or both? Okay, yeah, I understand what your question is. So you're wondering if you need to use the same or change your description from the current activity to the planned. So that I would say that might be up to you. Let's go ahead and look at that section of the guide again. And what I do like is that our guide, this particular section, now has updated information that comes directly from our director, one of the deans from our medical schools, who has given us a lot of insight as to what they're looking for in the activities. So, with that, I would recommend that you take a look at the description link that we have here, and I'll put it into the chat. Again, the school still want to see copy pasted descriptions. So in this case, if I remember correctly, we did host the dean that gave us this information and insight about activity descriptions. If I'm remembering correctly, she might have mentioned something to the matter of um, listing in your current activity description what you have been doing or what has been meaningful. More guidance about that is in that link that I just shared. And then for the plan description, perhaps changing it to be more reflective of as to what you hope to do in the future. Because again, you don't always know exactly what you're going to be doing in the future. So it's okay to kind of project on there like what you anticipate to be doing in that activity and entering that description as such. But just to make sure that information is accurate, based on what the dean said, you can always check out that video that is in that link that I shared. And then just, I know it's a long video because it is an hour long, but it's an hour long of a lot of useful information that we can't necessarily always explain. It's just better coming from the deans, or they just explain it in a way that lands a little bit different for applicants and for me as well, as we all learning as well, making sure that we can guide you on and point you on the right direction to obtain the answers that you need or that you seek. And so highly recommend that you check out that video. I I'm almost positive that she does answer that in the video. And I'm not sure if it's outlined here in a timestamp on the guide, but I'm almost positive that it is listed in that video and that she mentions it. Okay. So, from Kelly, my full-time job falls under employment, but is also very manual dexterity heavy. What would you recommend doing, including in both trying to distribute the total hours each section, etc.? So with the manual dexterity that is specifically for dental applicants? Let's see. And with dental applicants, we did recently have a session with two deans from dental schools, and their topic was activities and how it pertains specifically for dental applicants, and giving you more guidance and insight as to these particular categories and how they differentiate from all the other categories listed. And so they do provide additional guidance. It is linked in I'll go ahead and link it here from the dental experience, and then you can scroll down to manual dexterity because it also has a link to that video, that session, which occurred last month. So let me link that for you. Okay. So to answer this very quickly, um, it sounds like you. Hmm, I believe manual dexterity or dental experience might be the one exception to the rule for employment. So let me just double check that. Okay, so it sounds like the exception to the rule of listing an activity once for specifically for dental applicants is if you have dental applicants may also list an activity in both dental experience and employment for activities that meet these criteria. It doesn't say manual dexterity. I believe from what they have mentioned, manual dexterity is a section that gives them insight as to any hobbies or anything else that gives them insight as to how you have developed or worked your skills in being able to work in small spaces. And so that if you have something that would go under there, it looks like you can only put it under the manual dexterity. So I would just recommend that you are mindful of that. It looks like that one is not one that you can double dip. And then just making sure that your description and your hours match. You know, if this was like an employment, but you had there's a part of it that was you would consider manual dexterity, just making sure you're not overinflating hours. Um, and then just to make sure that double check my work, double check my response, I would highly recommend that you take a look at that dental dean session. In that session, a key takeaway that I got from it was a lot of times they themselves told me, well, that activity can actually go here too, or it can go in this activity in this section. You know, sounds like it can be under both or either one. And it sounds like they're just giving they are okay with it, being flexible if an activity can be listed under multiple categories. It could be, but you deciding where that goes and they'll follow your lead in that. That's the takeaway that I kind of got from that session. Again, highly recommend that you check that out just to make sure the information is accurate that I'm mentioning, but I also think it's highly important and relevant for dental applicants to take a look at those sessions that are geared specifically towards dental applicants coming directly from the dental deans. Okay, so I know we have a couple of activity questions. I'm going to see if we can get to those at the end. I want to make sure that we are giving room and space for everyone else who's asking all sorts of other variety of questions. Like I mentioned, the activities page, ultimately, it's going to be up to you to use your best judgment and decide where you're going to place your activity based on the categories that are listed, the guidance and rationale for each of those. Again, you want to focus on your narrative. What are you trying to communicate to the schools? Making sure that what that message is being reflected in your descriptions and you are thinking critically, where am I going to place my activities based on what I want to tell the schools? So just take a look at that. Again, that is linked into the chat. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to go ahead and link it again. And this is as far as we can provide any kind of advice or guidance, since we don't we at the Team DSAS support, we're not necessarily here to give advice on where should I place this activity. Should it be in this category and that one? We can't tell you, yes, it needs to go there. No, that's incorrect. We unfortunately can't do that, but we can provide the outline and guidance that is here to kind of help you navigate that and you yourself be able to make that determination for yourself. Ultimately, like I mentioned, there's not a right or wrong way of categorizing an activity, and you're not going to be penalized for that. Again, the schools, the overall consensus from the deans has been if you believe that this activity goes under this category and you have a description that backs up your claim, all right, so be it. We follow your lead. Like that's the way to go. They're not going to be here like, wow, that activity definitely does not go here. Let me cross that out and mark it on their application. That's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to get you in that matter. So if it at all kind of eases a little bit of that uncertainty. I hope it does. Just know that you do have that liberty to make that decision yourself based on the guidance provided and based on your knowledge of your own activities, what you experienced, what you want to highlight, what you want to communicate to the schools that you did, what was the takeaway from those activities, and they will take your word for it. All right. So, question from Darsh. The homepage shows that 611 submissions are currently being processed, but my application hasn't been verified, even though I submitted it on 610. Great question. We do get this a lot. This information is updated daily on our homepage, and although our team is on that date, it doesn't mean that they forgot about your application. If it was the previous submission date. It could mean that they're still processing those applications and reviewing documents if you submitted any of those for residency confirmation. And so they may still be working on those and on their way to getting that sent out to the schools as soon as possible. So it's just letting y'all know. It's just letting you know that our team has started looking at that submission date applications, but that doesn't mean that everything else submitted before that has already been done and put away and forgotten. No, it takes time, and they're just doing thorough review. But if you do have any questions about that, you can always follow up with a message. All right. So, question from Leslie. I plan on applying to MD, PhD programs. I submitted my TMDSAS application earlier this month. I will be submitting to MCAS later this week. Does that mean I only submitted to the MD portion, and until I submit MCAS, it will count towards the joint program? Uh, Great question. So, with this, with dual degree programs, unless you indicate that on your so whenever you go to select schools in the application, if the school offers dual degree programs there, the pop those options will pop up upon you selecting that school. If you only select the school, you're only applying to the MD program. If you also check the checkbox for any of those dual degree programs, then you are indicating interest in also applying to that dual degree. Um, the admissions process is a little different for that because it does involve another, in this instance, like a PhD admissions committee that would also need to review your application. Some schools will have those dual degree applications via other application services, so just double check on what those look like if that's the case for your situation. I know some schools, um, the TMDSAS application is the application that is tied to that. And I'm not very familiar with beyond that. So in this case, um, if you only, again, from the technical aspect, if you only checked off the school name without checking any of those dual degree program options, then yes, you only apply to the MD program. Um, but if you are interested in the dual degree, you can always also send us a message and let us know that you would like to check the checkbox for one of those dual degree programs. And then any additional questions about the admissions process for a dual degree, I would recommend getting in touch with the school that offers that program, so they can give you more information about that. Alrighty. Question from Megan. What should I do if my DAT score isn't received after a week of having my official scores ready? Already. I contacted y'all in ADA already, and the advice was to check my info, and it seems to be right. Oh, great question. Okay, so with test scores, that's always it typically, I would say 90-95% of the time, it is that there is a component that is incorrect. What that means is, and I'll give you the link for the information in the guide, just so that you can have it as a reference as well. So if you take a look at that page that I just pasted into the chat, as you can see with scores that you have already released, well, first of all, make sure that you release the score. Simply just listing the date on there is not enough. If you just put your DAT date on the and information in the application, that's not enough. You also have to make sure that that gets released. How to release those scores is also listed on this page, so take a look at that information to make sure that you did release your scores first and released it to, in this case, at least one dental school. By default, that will also be received by TMDSAS, so your application. If after that, um, it takes up to 36 hours for us to receive the scores, and on your status page in your application portal, it'll say, it'll give you a timestamp of date and time, or date, I believe it's just date, and it'll tell you whether that score was received or not. If after 36 hours it still says not received, it most likely, again, 90 and like I would even say 98% of the time, I'm not even kidding. It's usually one of the reasons listed here. So it could be a mismatch of information. I know you already said you checked your information, it seems right, but I highly encourage you to double check that again, triple check it. Your AMC, either your AMC or in this case your DNT PIN number is incorrect. It might be off by a number. It happens. It's a long number, and typing it in sometimes you can miss a number or enter the seven instead of a six. It can happen. Your test date is incorrect. This was an issue a lot during the pandemic, where we had a lot of schedule our test changes to scheduling, and not updating your now new test date is highly important, because that'll also not match with the information that we receive. Check your date of birth. A lot of applicants, again, might have missed the key, might have entered a six instead of a five, or a lot of, in cases our applicants are used to a different uh, date format. So instead of month date, it's date month. Um, the year sometimes, again, the key can be incorrect. Again, most of the time, I would say confidently 90 to 98% of the time, it is one of these reasons. One of these key information is mismatched from what we are receiving from the ADA. And so it is important to go back into your application portal, check your uh, and demographic information. That is where your date of birth will be located. Check your DAT page. Check that your test dates are correct as what they appear in your ADA account. Make sure that your PIN is the same as what's in your ADA account, and making sure that is the same. Um, if it is not the same, if you see that one of those is incorrect, you can go ahead and make that change to the test date on the DAT page. If you need to make changes to your date of birth or your DNT PIN number, send us a message. At that point, you would need the help from a team member to help you out with that. And if it's not any of that, after you triple check, quadruple check, and you see that everything is accurate and it's still saying not received, send us a message, and let us know about that. Okay, let's see. And again, I know that we have some questions in here, but we also have 10 minutes left, and I do want to be mindful of everyone's time and be able to answer every question as quickly and equitable as possible. So for now, I'm going to be skipping those activity questions, and moving on to other types of questions. Okay. looks like a residency question. When asked for my hometown, I was born and raised in Houston, Texas for 13 years, moved somewhere else for the last year. Is hometown Houston, Texas, or current address? Because I feel I am more cultured by my own current town. Okay, yeah, definitely. Great question. We do get this a lot. Just differentiating hometown to, I believe the other one, there's a hometown and then another option for, in this case, like where you currently reside. Um, yeah, just let's take a look at that. Education, no, personal information. Let's see. Okay, so there's birth information and hometown. That there's the two different options for listing your demographic information. So the hometown, the following questions refer to what you consider to be your hometown. So if you consider Houston to be your hometown, you're more than welcome to list that in hometown. Um, if you believe that's, or if that's more accurate to list it as your birth information, you can do that as well. It's up to you. The schools are not going to be strict in looking at this and looking you up and seeing that that information is incorrect. It's self-reported, so feel confident in being able to choose which one you feel is more closer to what you consider hometown in this case, and what might just be your birthplace. All right, let's see. Okay, so it's looking like let's see. Found one more question about activities. So what kind of differences should there be between descriptions of the same activity in the healthcare section versus employment section? Again, highly recommend that you take a look at the descriptions and information that is listed for each of those categories. So, with because that is an exception to listing an activity more than once, you can do that if it falls under these two categories. Uh, Make sure that your description is tailored to that activity category that you're placing it. So, if you have your same activity and you're placing it under the healthcare activity category, make sure that description is only about the healthcare aspect. If whenever you're listing that activity into the employment category, make sure it's only talking about the employment aspect of it, so you don't copy and paste. We do have information here in the guide that kind of gives you an example. If you're a scribe, that counts as healthcare and employment, and how it breaks it down. This is kind of what you would talk about in the healthcare category. This is kind of what you would talk about in the employment aspect of it. Again, ultimately, the schools just don't want to see repetition, just you copy and pasting. There is no limit to how many activities you can list in your activity. They don't want you to just abuse that and just copy paste everywhere. And when it comes to an activity more than once, just using trust your judgment and being tactical and thinking critically where to place your activities and the categories. Um, and then with the description, making sure that it's you know corresponding to that category. So for healthcare, it needs to be talked about healthcare and what you learned, lessons learned, um, values that you take from that, what was meaningful. And then in employment, same thing. It's only talking about the employment aspect. What did you learn? What was valuable? What was meaningful? And all these descriptions contribute to the overall narrative that you're trying to give the schools, what you are overall telling the schools about you, your healthcare journey, um, and yeah, just it is up to you to make that determination. But I hope that you don't feel too overwhelmed by that. Especially if you would like more rigidness, this does give you a little bit more flexibility, like where to place those activities under the categories. Um, so yeah, so just be mindful. There is guidance in here that gives you examples, examples coming from the dean, examples coming from our team DSCS director. So just take a look at that. Again, I know that these are long videos, but it they are long for a reason. because they do have a lot of information. And we, in each of those videos, we do provide Q&As that the deans answer. So they are also going through everyone's questions and answering them, kind of like what we're doing right now. This is the exact same platform that we use for those sessions, and it's very helpful to have the dean provide those resources and answers to your questions. So highly take a look at that. Because if you have the question, most likely someone else already asked that question as well. That could be helpful for you. All right, so the last question we'll get to for today is taking the MCAT on July 26th going to significantly decrease my chances? By chances, I believe you mean your chances of getting into medical school or getting invited, whatnot. So when it comes to applying early, it's what we normally get asked about. Um, that information is it seems like that is more like right now, and based on what the deans have let us know about applying early, taking the MCAT. Just be mindful that if you're taking it at the end of the month, it does take some time for the scores to be received, and then ultimately for you to release that, and then for it to be on your application. And relative with the window of interview invites are going out. Remember, I don't know if you were here at the beginning of our session, but as of August 1st, medical schools start to hand out interview invites as of that date. Not all of them go out on that date, but as of that date, they start getting those interview invites out. And so you want to make sure that you have everything ready on your application, your scores, your letters, etc. For more information about this, we do have a session with the dean, Dr. Perry from the Texas Tech School of Medicine at El Paso. So let me quickly find that and paste that in here for you because she talks about preparing for the application cycle, planning it all out, planning when to take your MCAT, um, submitting your letters, all of that. She's great. She's awesome. She answered so many questions for us about this. And we did have some examples from people asking about their MCAT dates and what that looks like for them in regards to applying early, um, and all of that. So let me just go ahead and find that for you and paste it in here. It is on our YouTube channel, but because we do have a lot of videos, it might be hard to find. So let me go ahead and just get that for you. Okay, let's see. And feel free to take a look at all the rest of the sessions that we have for Admissions Dean's Corner. That is where you will find all this useful information. If you go to our YouTube channel, we do have that playlist. It is the first playlist that comes up, has all the Admission Dean's Corners sessions, and I will link that here. Alrighty. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for today. Asking a variety of questions. I do appreciate it because it gives us also information as to where you guys are at, what kind of information y'all need, what kind of questions are being asked for us to get idea of any trends that may be occurring to help us know if we need to address certain topics, if we need to send y'all information on the specific thing or provide that in the office hours, even informing the kind of subjects and topics that we cover with the deans. So thank you so much. We will be hosting this session again. It's weekly, every Wednesday at 1. It is typically at 1, with the exception of today. But next Wednesday it'll be at 1, and definitely send us. Join us. But if you have any questions between now and then, again, the best way to reach us is by sending us a message in your application portal. Typical turnaround time for that is 2 business days. So our team is getting through all those messages and addressing your questions as they come in. Thank you guys so much, and I hope and wish you all the best of luck with your application. Bye, everyone.